Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Just ahead of John Shannon, Thursday regular. Reminder that Donnie and Dolly is presented by Able Auctions. If you have assets, inventory, or equipment that you need to sell, email sales@ableauctions.ca. Our thanks to Jeremy Dodd and the folks at Able Auctions. A couple of things before we get to John. We haven't got the definitive shot of Bergman getting kicked by Boris Mikhailov back in 1972. It was Game 7 of the Summit Series.
We don't have the video.
There was some ugliness in that series. Also, yes, indeed, 1969, a defensive lineman out of Youngstown State, Ed O'Neill, who went on to become Al Bundy.
Oh, wow.
Had a tryout
with the Pittsburgh
Steelers. Unsuccessful. I think he's okay with it, given the way things worked out with his acting career. Tough segue. We're going to do it. John Shannon, NHL Analyst, co-host of the Bob McCown podcast. How are you, sir?
I did win the punt, pass, and kick contest in 1969.
There you go.
You know, same year that O'Neill's with the Steelers. I'm beating Fieldgate and Sonny Homer and I can think of 69. Who was 69? Paul Brothers, I think, was the quarterback that year. So I think I could throw the ball better than Paul Brothers. No offense to Paul Brothers.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember Paul Brothers doing ads for Fred Asher. He also played quarterback for the Lions.
And the Oregon Ducks.
There you go. Hey, John, before we get into the hockey, this is hockey related, but Jim Hughson retires after 42 years in the broadcast business. What made him so darn good?
Well, in the end, it was his passion for the game, how much he loved hockey, how much he loved broadcasting. And then, quite frankly, it's the tutelage of Jim Robson. You know, if anybody in British Columbia wasn't influenced by how Jim Robson called the game, and Hughson was certainly influenced by Robson, who, in my mind, was one of the greatest play-by-play guys in the history of the game, in any city, in any league. That was a big part of it. So the combination of those two things, Jim had a remarkable ability to retain information, not just statistics, but information, and wasn't afraid to use it. I mean, he was a consummate professional and a great. Here's the other thing: he was a great team player.
Yeah,
you know, there was a great deal of respect in Hughson the way he handled himself around a crew of 50 people, whether you're the audio assistant or the graphics assistant or the statistician. He was a true member of a team, and he understood that.
Did you work with him a lot, John?
Not as much as people think.
Yeah.
He did his first Hockey Night in Canada game in 1984 for me, a playoff game in Calgary with the Vancouver Canucks, I believe. That was the one game he did in the 80s. My recollection of him was that he was the backup guy for Robson in 1982, and I was running Hockey Night in Canada in the West, and I walked up to him, and he was wearing torn-off shorts, long hair, a Fu Manchu, and he was the backup play-by-play guy at CKNW. And what he did was he sent me a tape, and we married that tape to the actual game coverage of Hockey Night in Canada. And that was the beginning of getting Hughson his first TV job.
He wouldn't have got a job if Lou Lamoriello was in charge of Hockey Night in Canada.
That's true.
No. That was the difference between radio and television in those days, boys. We were shirts and ties every day, all day, at the rink, away from the rink, and Hughson was in his cutoffs. I could see the bottom of his pockets.
Hey, John, a bag skate, a tradition with Travis Green, a conditioning skate for the Canucks today. Some people feel that's old school. It should go the way of the dodo bird. What's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, I like conditioning skate, Donnie. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's very nice of you to do it that way. If I was running Hockey Night in Canada game, they wouldn't be able to say bag skate. The thing is, I mean, what is training camp for anyway? I mean, these guys are in shape. These guys are conditioned. What they aren't is in game shape. So you have to create simulations of what 40-second shifts are like, what 30-second shifts are like, what it is to go from the offensive face-off circle back to the goal line. So at this point, I'm not really worried about day one. I'm just what you have to do with your team is make sure that by the time that second week of October comes, that they can play games rather than just be what you think is in good physical condition.
So, John, you can imagine the number one story in Vancouver is the two guys, the big franchise players not at camp. Your thoughts on when this could possibly get done, and what are you hearing?
Well, I haven't heard anything since yesterday, and everybody has now become very diplomatic, Rick. We're still talking and things are looking good.
Yeah.
The pressure in Vancouver, the pressure in Ottawa with Brady Tkachuk got even worse when you think that Kaprizov got signed and Rasmus Dahlin got signed.
Yes.
So from that perspective, I'm not really too worried yet. I do think that I would expect that something will occur by as early as next Monday or Tuesday with all three players, so that they can at least get some camp time for their teams. They want to be there. What are we niggling about? Are we niggling about $500,000 or an extra year or a reduction of a year? That's what agents, that's what guys like Pat Brisson and Don Meehan and Pat Morris get paid the big dollars to do, and I suspect that's what's happening right now.
Got to get your thoughts on what's happening in Buffalo. What a gong show. So Eichel failed his physical today, which we all expected. He had the captaincy stripped away, but why would you give the captaincy to a guy that doesn't want to be there? Your thoughts on what's happening in Buffalo?
Well, the Sabres are a classic case of ready, fire, aim, and have been for a lot of years. The fact that they did give Eichel the captaincy when they did a few years back was insane. That was ownership saying, well, he's our most expensive player. He's supposed to be our star. We'll make him the captain. That's not what should happen to a team. So that was one mistake. I actually think Kevin Adams is trying to be a little more common sense and rational through this. The discussions and the differences between what should happen surgery-wise, the Sabres have gone from saying we didn't want you to have surgery at all to saying, well, now we need you to have surgery, but it should be the conventional type rather than the not experimental type, but the disc surgery that would put an artificial disc in place. They actually, I think, are in better shape than I think a lot of people imagine them to be, other than Eichel, just because I think Kevin Adams has been using some common sense. It's going to take a lot of time in Buffalo. And as long as ownership will stay out of the way, and they haven't for the last decade, if ownership stays out of the way, then maybe Kevin Adams has a chance to do something. Don Granato is going to be a good coach there. Mm-hmm. They do have some good parts. Owen Power is not going to be there this year. He's going back to Michigan. This is a long haul remedy in Buffalo, and it's not going to be an easy fix, and that's why they're in no hurry to do anything with Eichel as well.
And John, Kyle Dubas says he's not thinking of his job security in Toronto. Is he on thin ice?
He's got 1 year, Donnie.
Mm-hmm.
He's got this year. And this team has to make an impact in the playoffs. If it doesn't, then Kyle Dubas will be looking for a job. Brendan Shanahan potentially could be looking for a job next summer if they don't make an impact. Their team is not as good as a lot of people think it is. I don't think their goaltending is as good as it was last year. Their defense might have a few question marks, and they're not as deep. They're not as deep. The Maple Leafs are tough in that Atlantic Division where Tampa and Florida and Boston and even Ottawa might challenge them.
And John.
And Montreal.
Yeah. And John, what's going to be fascinating in Toronto to me is the kid from North Vancouver, Morgan Riley, and his next contract. Because I don't know where they're going to find the money to get that kid re-upped.
We had Kyle on the podcast last week, and I said, well, with Seth Jones and Darnell Nurse and all these guys getting, salaries that started the 9, where do you put Morgan on that list? He says, well, we don't think we can use those comparables. I said, you may not, but the guys at CAA will want to be using those comparables. So that's going to be a big challenge for them, and they have to figure out what to do. And if they want to sign Riley, that means one of the big four have to go out.
Yeah, and J.P. Barry's Riley's agent.
Yeah, John, don't knock CAA here.
Hey,
Rick has,
don't listen to him, John. Don't listen to him.
Rick has shares in the company.
Whatever. You know what? See, this
Hey,
is what I got to put up with, John.
You know, I used to phone JP, and he was in the boat out on Okanagan Lake half the time, and then of course our pal Bane Pettinger's there too, and he's a good man. So they got and Brisson. I mean, they're a good bunch of guys. How can you go wrong
thank
with
you.
the
And this
CAA?
guy all he does is rip them.
No, I don't. There's other things I rip. Not John Shannon, though. Thanks for this. We'll talk to you next Thursday, John.
Cheers, boys.
You bet.